Hello and welcome back to the channel. Okay, a few weeks ago, Colin done a video, done a podcast with, I'm not sure the two other guys in the podcast, but basically done a podcast and talked about the acquisitions that Xbox are looking to do. And they went into this in quite big detail, which I'm going to go into. But what happened is, obviously, the PS fan base jumped on this and started posting all over Twitter and was sort of trying to say, though I actually agree with what some of them were saying. Oh, you got one camp where you got Colin Moriarty was saying he was taken out of context, which as I said, I'll go into, and then the PS4 guys were just basically repeating what he was saying and copy pasting cuts of the whole podcast. They chose certain bits and put it together and put it onto Twitter for people to see. So while I agree with Colin Moriarty, yes, and if you are listening, which I doubt, yes, some of what you said was taken out of context, but you did say it, and this is what I want to go into. So once again, I want to reiterate, this is kind of taken out content from the full podcast. The podcast was 15 minutes long, and this is just cut bits. But I just want to go over the actual things that he did say, because he said, you're taking out of context. But if you actually listen to the words he's saying, he does mean them. I don't think you can take too much out of context. If you actually listen to the words he's saying. So I'm going to go through each point him and his podcast team are making and sort of give my impression of what they're saying, because I think journalists like this or people like this, developers that need to be more aware of what they're saying and need to sort of understand the full picture, or at least elaborate and give a full picture, a full impression, rather than sort of a biased view, which in my opinion, this is what this comes across like. So let's go into this and start now.
Microsoft buying any of those companies would be fucking heinous with a capital H. And it would make people hate Microsoft. No one is going to tolerate a reality in which Microsoft gets Take-Two and then takes Grand Theft Auto away from 150 million people that own GTA 5 or something like that.
So this is the first point. He seems to be very angry, very upset that Microsoft could even think about getting a big games such as GTA 5 and making it exclusive. Well, it wouldn't be GTA 5 because it's already out and people have already bought it. You'd have to be referring to GTA 6 and taking it away from 150 million people. Now, firstly, I don't know who the 150 million people. I think it sold 150 million copies, but that's across 3 platforms. Well, that's across Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. So you'd only be taking it away from one platform. That's PlayStation. I don't know how many people on PlayStation bought the game alone. But that's who he would be removing it from. They can still play the game. They can play it on PC because a lot of these guys own PCs. Apparently, all of them have high end top tier PCs. So we would really be taken away from them. But the thing is, we don't see this outrage when you look at things like Spider-Man. Spider-Man used to be a multiplayer game. Now it's exclusive to Sony. No one's grumbled. No one's saying you're taking Spider-Man away from the PC and Xbox gamers, which must be 200 million plus. Market share. No one's complaining about that. No one's complaining about the Wolverine franchise being taken away. No one's complaining about the Final Fantasies just being. No one complains about exclusives. Full stop. No one says it's not fair. There's exclusives. I can't play them unless I buy that console. It's not fair. Nobody is doing that. Nobody's doing that until Microsoft bought Bethesda, and now people are saying, "Oh, that's not fair. I can't play that now unless I own a PC or an Xbox." Up until Bethesda, nobody cared. Everyone was actually backing Sony and agreeing and wanted exclusives. Everyone pushed exclusives as a narrative. Now Xbox has got the upper hand. It's suddenly bad now. It's suddenly heinous. It's suddenly evil. You can't do that. You can't take games away from people. They're not taken away from, just like exclusives before. Buy a PC, play it on PC, play it on Xbox. Xbox actually being more open with their games now. They're allowing, unlike Sony, they're allowing people to play their games on other platforms. You can play it on mobile now because they've got xCloud. You can play it on mobile. You can play it on PC. You can play it on Xbox. So if they did do that, you can still play the game. They're not saying you have to own an Xbox to play this game. You don't. That's not what Xbox is about. They're not making you, but they're not gatekeeping games. They're not making you, forcing you to purchase their console. You do not have to purchase their console to play their games, unlike what Sony is doing.
Here's the fucking reality of the situation. Microsoft has done very little with studios that it has nurtured and founded itself. and it is going around and grabbing things off of the market because it cannot satiate that demand internally, and that is not a problem that is happening with PlayStation.
This kind of misleading nonsense just grinds my gears. It just winds me up when they talk this way about Xbox, but saying it's not happening within Sony. That's absolute lie. Let's just go through some of their studios. Naughty Dog. Sony acquired those in 2001. They were not founded within Sony. They didn't build them up. Naughty Dog already existed under a different name, or been through various names, and Sony purchased them. They purchased Naughty Dog. They wasn't made and founded by Sony. Guerrilla Games, Sony purchased in 2005. Prior to that, they was independent. Insomniac and House Marquee, two studios that were also independent, which were bought by Sony recently in 2021. Media Molecule, who make the Little Big Planet franchises, were purchased by Sony in 2010. Bend Studio, who made Days Gone, they was purchased by Sony in 2000. And I could continue, but the point they're missing is PlayStation already had the market share. They already pretty much have 2 generations head start on top of Xbox. Xbox wasn't around when the PlayStation was around. Xbox didn't come into play until the PlayStation 2 had already kicked off. And I think it was about a year or two after PlayStation 2 was already out, and then Xbox joined the market and to compete with PlayStation. So there's already pretty much 2 generations behind. They need to keep up. To compete, they need to keep up. They don't have time to build studios from the ground up. They are doing it with initiative, but it's going to take time for them to build, get to the level. Because Sony studios, some of the studios I've just shut out, Santa Monica, Naughty Dog, have been with Sony 10 plus years. Xbox does not have 10 plus years. If they want to compete with Sony in the market space, they don't have 10 plus years from this get-go to now get settled down, build studios, build popularity, build games, build a team, and then compete in 10 years' time. They don't have the time for that. They don't have the time. They will drop off the market like Stadia. They will soon vanish. They will soon die off. They don't have time for that. The only way you can do it is leapfrog. And Xbox has the money to do so they're going to do it. Sony are doing it. Sony are buying studios. They're not now sitting back and going, no, we're just going to organically, horrible, stupid word, make our own studios and make our own games. They're not doing that. They're buying studios. As I said, they just bought Insomniac and House Marquee. They're doing exactly the same. They don't have time to grow studios anymore because now they compete with Xbox. Xbox now are actively fighting back, so they need to compete. They ain't got time. They can't give Xbox any leverage now. So the only way they can compete is now also buying up studios. So they're doing it as well, which they've always done. But back then, there wasn't much competition, so they had more freedom to build these studios up, buy the studios, and then slowly develop them. They don't have time for that. Now they have to buy developed, ready-to-go studios that can just hit the ground running, basically.
But no one can go and say, like, Sony has gone and really injured other companies with their acquisitions. I look at Xbox, there are some teams where I'm like, come on, man. You guys are just buying things. But why would you buy, like, Ninja Theory? What was the point of that? What was the point of Double Fine? I mean, obviously Psychonauts 2 is really great, but in terms of culture. And so I just think that would be another move like that where you're just grabbing things because you can.
Injured companies with your acquisitions. What is that alluding to? What is he meaning by that? I'm not quite sure of his point there. I'm not sure what companies he's injured. Also, grabbing things because you can. Well, yes, exactly what Sony was doing with Naughty Dog, with all the studios I've just read off. They bought these studios because they could, and then from that they've developed and made them bigger and made them what they are now. That's how business works, Colin. Yes, what you do. And the bit I hated most about this little speech is, why would you buy Ninja Theory or Double Fine? What was the point of that? Well, Colin, firstly, Psychonauts 2 rated above Sunset Overdrive and both Spider-Man games that Insomniac recently released. So why would you buy Insomniac? Why did they buy Insomniac? Why did they buy House Marquee? Why would you buy Why would you buy anyone, Colin? Why would you buy any studio? It's developed games, and obviously Xbox have bought these two completely different style of games. You've got Psychonauts 2, which is a fan favourite and well received by critics and players, and it could be up for a nomination for the Game of the Year. Spider-Man wasn't. Spider-Man MM wasn't. Neither was Sunset Overdrive. So why would you buy Insomniac? Why would you do that? Hellblade 2. See, the way he sort of puts this, the way he says it, comes across as, I don't know, it's openly, I don't know, it's just, I just find it really insulting to the development teams of those teams, of Ninja Theory and Double Fine. Does anyone else find it personally insulting? I find it sort of insulting that he should say such a thing. And I would like to see how those devs particularly took, why would you buy these studios? Just wondered what their opinions on how they took his statement on that. But, you know, Xbox, they're trying to branch out and reach different audiences. That's the beauty of Xbox. That's why I like Xbox, because their first party actually creates different genres and different variations of games. They have much more variety than PlayStation, and that's why I enjoy Xbox. And they're obviously getting these studios that are all different. They're not all over-the-shoulder action adventures, or telling to bring them in and please make us an over-the-shoulder action adventure. They're bringing in different studios that can produce different styles of game, different genres to fit different audiences, and then put these games into Game Pass, because at the end of the day, they want everyone to be playing in Game Pass, everyone playing it, all different ages, all different gamers, whether you're competitive, whether you like the action shooters, whether you like FPS, whether you like racers, whether you like platformers. Well, regardless of what you like, there will be something in Game Pass for you, and that's what Xbox is trying to reach, and that's why they bought these studios. On top of that, these studios are fantastic. Hellblade. Personally, I didn't like the game because it's not my style of game, but I can recognise a fantastic looking and well developed game. Psychonauts 2, I didn't like that because I like platformers, but I played it, and the art, same as Hellblade, the art, and you can see the detail gone into it. Fantastic game. And once again, both games are actually are sort of games to do with sort of how your mind works. I think that, ironically, it's quite funny. But how can you run down Psychonauts 2? I mean, he did say it's a very good game. Yes, then you sort of answered your own question. Why would you buy them? Well, you just said it's a fantastic game.
There's a lot of people that want to argue about one of Microsoft's greatest strengths is their ability to open up their wallet and buy things for their console. And from my perspective, they have to buy things because they're so terrible at managing their own teams. Look at the last decade, okay? Look at since the entire Xbox One generation, even slightly before that. Look at games like the Crackdown, right? Crackdown 3. Look at how they handled Fable. Look at how they handled their most valuable IP with Halo since Bungie's been gone.
Plus Phantom Dust canceled, Scalebound canceled.
I was about to mention that.
Yeah.
They can't even handle their second-party relationships. So what do? They resort to just buying studios, and you better pray that they don't get involved with the management of these teams, because look at the history. Just look at it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that they very wisely, at least for now, said that they're going to let Bethesda continue to be like a sub-managed brand, because you better hope that they don't get involved, because they continually are screwing up over and over again.
And once again, I don't know who this guy is, he's a complete Burke. Once again, they're just giving misinformation, or they're not giving the full picture. They're coming across as very biased and very ignorant to the whole truth of both sides. They seem to just be targeting Xbox and trying to pull them down and make out they've mismanaged things. And then this went all over Twitter, people copy pasting what they said basically. Yes, Xbox can't manage anything. They cancel studios, they cancel games, yada yada yada. As the fella said, you know, screwing up, can't manage stuff. They're doing got cancellations. Let's go back over the past 10 years, how they've done stuff. They're god awful. But let's just go over the past 10 years of, I don't know, Sony, shall we? Bottom line, if you're going to do a podcast and sort of target a corporation like this, you need to be better informed, or at least be careful of the words you use so you're not taken out of context, because people out there will take your context. I'm just covering the words, the things that are said, that were stated in the podcast, which I disagree on wholeheartedly, and I'd like to know in comments if any of you do. It didn't end there anyway, because Saltiest Gaming, I don't know if you've heard of that Wally, he decided to get Colin on his show and tried to dig him out on some things or have a go at him. Didn't quite work the way he wanted it to, and Colin sort of fired back at him and exposed him. Let's have a listen to that.
How do you know about me, or how did you hear about?
I honestly never heard of you, and that's not an insult. I'm not in the YouTube.
What? You didn't even have me. Oh my god! Oh my god!
I'm not in the YouTube space really. Like YouTube is an afterthought for us. We're in the podcast space, so I don't really know what's going on YouTube. We want to build out our YouTube. We have, I think, like 80,000 followers, or whatever you call them here, subscribers. But you're making a lot of assumptions, like, because you were assuming earlier, like, well, we reached out because we needed an Xbox guy, and you're talking about how well-rounded you are. Like, none of that is really relevant or germane to the conversation at all.
Why isn't it though? Because you're talking about an Xbox
I'm not
topic.
asking you about your credentials. I believe you. Like,
no, but I'm asking you about yours.
Yeah, my credentials. People can go look. Moriarty-IGN.
No, I'm asking about your Xbox
40%.
credentials, my dude. You don't play on Xbox. You said that your
No,
girlfriend does. So
Right,
how?
my girlfriend does, and we went.
Why would anybody take you seriously about anything you say about Xbox?
They do or don't. That doesn't matter to me. I don't.
So
think
that's-
you're understanding. All right,
that's the
dude,
point I'm
listen,
telling
You're
you.
not going to talk
Okay.
over me, or I'm not going to do this. We can
Okay.
talk
All right.
one and then the other. Okay. Cool.
All right.
So Xbox. The reason that people listen to me about Xbox is because I've been in the industry for a long time. I played Xbox. I played Xbox 360. If you knew how Xbox 360 games were covered back in the day, which I doubt you do, you would know that you would not get games on the natural network. You would have to put games on the debug hard drives and change them around. So a lot of stuff from Xbox 360 as opposed to PS3 during that era, we don't have the legacy trophies and achievements from that era. We have the legacy PS3 trophies because we were able to hack basically the PSN and change the debug settings. But everyone's achievements from that era are gone. So that's not really a meaningful thing. You're talking about credentials like that's really the credential. You could really just ask me questions, and then I can tell you my credentials or not. Because you're talking about credentials as being like, oh, well, I play these many games. Well, it's like, dude, I make games. So does that mean that I have more credentials than you? I literally publish games on Xbox. So does that mean that, like, I have more of a right to talk about it than you do? Like what you're saying really makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. So I understand that angle, but it's that doesn't work for me.
So there was obviously more to the podcast. It did go on a little bit longer, and basically Salty didn't do himself any favours. Every time he come at Colin come back at him, and really just shamed Salty on his own podcast because he just didn't come across as prepared. I didn't watch the whole podcast, but what I did watch, Salties just weren't prepared, and he wasn't able to back up any of his statements. He just come across as a sort of generic Sony fanboy.
Is the art of sheep shearing. The way we're doing it, still the same way.
So there we go, we've come to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. So I just wanted to get my opinion across on what's been happening recently with things that have been said, and there's been a lot of Twitter action based on what has been said, and it's been carried forward. And I think people just being misled and misinformed about the whole thing about Xbox, what they're doing, what they're pursuing, what Sony have done and what they're pursuing. And I think it's all just very interesting, people's takes on it. And it's sort of like, I guess it's like religion really. You've got a Bible, it's written out, but it's how you interpret things that's written, and everyone interprets things different ways. And it's just interesting to see things like this, how things are being interpreted. Like from Xbox, how people interpret Xbox is doing compared to Sony, when they're pretty much doing the exact same thing. But it's odd that they sort of seem Xbox are doing everything completely different and doing it all wrong compared to Sony. And I just find it all very interesting. I'd like to hear your points and any comments you've got to say. Please sub and share. I was trying to make it to 1,000 by Christmas. That's not a possibility, I don't think. Please sub and share. Look out for my podcast as well. I've got a podcast running every Friday or Saturday evening. We're trying to slam down the time, but sort of work and our lives get in the way. With myself and Red Dead Panda. That's called the Gaming Podcast. Please check it out. It's on my channel. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye for now.